Standard 3, Subject English. Topic: A honeybee speaks. A honeybee speaks. A monologue. Now children, what is this word? A monologue. A monologue is usually when one person is doing the talking. When only one person is speaking, it is called a monologue. Mono means one. Log means speaking. Just like in movies and all, we have dialogue. Dialogue is when many people are speaking. We say, no, when people are speaking in a movie, it is a dialogue. In a movie or in a play, in a drama, it is a dialogue because there are 2 or 3 people speaking or more than that. A monologue is only one person speaking. Now, as the title of the lesson tells you, here, who is doing the monologue? Yes, of course, the honeybee. A honeybee speaks. So, only the honeybee is speaking here. That is why it is the honeybee's monologue. So, let's begin. What? Me? A lazy bee? You think I simply have fun all day among the flowers? Oh no! When I'm flitting from flower to flower, I am actually very hard at work. And that's why I am called not a lazy bee, but a busy bee. Now the honeybee is saying that she is actually very busy. You may be seeing the honeybee flying from flower to flower, moving from flower to flower. The word here is flitting, moving from one place to another, from one flower to another flower to the leaf or something like that. And people may be thinking, "Arey, this is fun. The bee is having fun. It is just moving from place to place and flying and enjoying." But the bee is saying, actually, I am hard at work. I am not just enjoying moving from flower to flower. It is my work. Now let us study what is this work that the bee is doing by flying from flower to flower. The bee says, I am not a lazy bee. I am not somebody who doesn't like to do any work, but I am actually a very busy person. Let's read now. Come, I'll show you my house and tell you what a lot of work we bees do all our life. Now the bee is taking us through to her house and showing us what kind of work that the bees are doing. My house is called a honeycomb. It's a big house with thousands of rooms or cells. Another word for the room in a honeycomb is called cell. Each room has 6 equal sides. We take a lot of care to build it. We even produce the material for building the comb. It's called beeswax. Now the honeybee's house is called the honeycomb. Here you can see. And you can see in the honeycomb these small cells are actually rooms. There are thousands of such rooms in the honeycomb. And can you see the perfect shape that it is? Each room has got 6 sides. It is a hexagon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides. So the rooms are hexagon shaped. Hexagon is a 6-sided figure. And like this, there are thousands of rooms. So you can see the honeybee is an engineering expert. so expertly it builds its house. You have learnt it in animal shelter. The bee makes its own house and it is in perfect shape. And the bee says that for making the house, there is something that is made by the bee herself. It is called beeswax. The bee herself makes the beeswax. So you can say that the bee is, the first thing that the bee is doing is it is busy building its own house, adding rooms, so many thousands of rooms, and producing that material for making the house, which is called beeswax. Now let's move further and read what else is the bee busy doing. Do you know, when I was very young, I used to stay at home. But even then, I had to do a lot of work. I had to look after the larvae, the babies that would grow into bees. I had to feed them and protect them. If anyone came near our comb to disturb it, I was ready with my weapon, a sting. I am not only a worker, I am also a soldier. Beware, don't trouble me. Now the bee says, when the bee was very young, when it is just a young bee which is not able to fly much, it stays at home. The little bee stays at home. And what does it do at home? It is looking after the babies in the house, the baby bees in the house. What is the word given for baby bees here? Larvae. Now, what is the bee doing? How does it take care of the babies? It feeds them, gives them food, and protects them, takes care of them. If anybody comes near the beehive to attack, the bee is ready to attack whoever is coming to disturb or trouble the babies or the beehive. So, see, it's given here in this sentence. If anyone came near a comb here means the honeycomb, to disturb it, I was ready with my weapon. Now, what is the weapon that it uses? It doesn't have bow and arrow or guns here. What is the bee's weapon? What are you most scared of when you go near a bee or a mosquito? Sting. It bites, it stings. I am not only a worker, I am also a soldier. The bee says, I am not just working at home, I am making food, I am making the material needed for making my house, I am making the house, I am taking care of the babies, but when it is time for me to protect the babies, I become a soldier also. So beware, be very careful. Beware means be very careful. Don't trouble me. You must be seeing your parents saying that don't go near the beehive. If a bee stings, it is very painful. So we have to take care not to go near the beehive and disturb the bees, because if the bee feels that there is danger, it may attack you. So you have to be careful not to go near the beehive and not to disturb it. Come on, let's move forward now. Well, to go back to the comb, I had to keep the comb cool by fanning it with my wings. Now it also acts like a fan. The little bee is fanning the beehive with its wings to keep it cool. Then I had to keep the house in order, put away all the honey and food that other bees brought from the flowers. Now the bees collect honey, they make honey. So this little bee which is staying at home has to put everything in its proper place in the house. So it is correctly saying that I am not free, I am not lazily sitting, I am hard at work. Even when I am in the house, I am working. But luckily, I had hundreds of other bees working with me. We all worked together without ever fighting. Now this is a big lesson for all of us. Here when we work, 2 or 3 people work together, we have so much of opinion. This one is doing that, that one is not doing. You can see it in the class also sometimes when it is a very difficult thing for us to work together. Whereas see how animals, they work together so beautifully. There is so much of cooperation and there is so much of helping and sharing of work. So we need to learn this from the bees, right? That without fighting, how we can get our work done. And maybe that is why their homes and this is so perfectly made, because every bee is working to help the other bee, not fighting, helping. That's one reason why we can build such perfect and beautiful houses. Just now what I said. That's why beautifully it is made. The bee is making such beautiful houses because each one is trying to help other, not trying to outsmart the other one. Each one is trying to help, and with each other's help they are making a beautiful house which is perfect for their needs. Yes, I help with the house building too. We keep making our house bigger and bigger to make room for the babies and for the food and honey we gather. Now you can see, children, this is very obviously seen that the beehive, it starts as a small structure hanging somewhere on a branch or a parapet or something, and then you can see it growing in size. That is because the bees are continuously adding rooms, so that when new babies and lot of food comes in, or when they are collecting food, they need to store that food. So many thousands of bees living in that beehive, working together. Can you imagine how beautifully they must be working and helping each other? When I became older, I began to fly out of the comb to gather nectar. Now, nectar is the juice in the flowers. When the bee becomes older, the bee is saying that when I was small, I used to manage in the house. I used to take care of the house. I used to take care of the babies. I used to put the food and the honey that the other bees brought. But when I became older, I also went out to get the bee says, even I went out to bring the nectar. The nectar is the juice and the sweet juice inside the flower. I take the nectar and pollen from the flowers and carry them back to the comb. Nectar is the sweet juice in flowers, and pollen is the yellow powdery stuff you see on flowers. See, this is what the bee means by pollen. This is pollen. So the bee is taking the juice and the pollen from the flowers and taking it back to the house. So many trips it is making. That is why again and again you see it coming to the flower and then taking it back to the house, then coming and sitting again on the flower, then again taking it back. So many rounds of trips it makes again and again. I visit hundreds of flowers and make several trips. Several means many. Every day without wasting even a single moment. Thousands of hundreds of flowers and so many trips. It is going back, coming again, going back, coming again. So it doesn't have even 1 minute. 1 moment means even 1 minute to waste. That is why it is called the busy bee. The nectar from the flowers is too thin. Now the juice that they get from the flowers is so very thin. We bees turn it into the sweet, thick honey that you like. Now the bee's job again is not over. Just bringing the nectar and pollen, the bee's job is not over. It turns that nectar into honey. The bees all work together and make it into that thick honey. You have seen honey. It is very thick. So the bees are working, after bringing the juice to the beehive, they are making honey out of that nectar. It's only because you called me a lazy bee that I stopped and explained it all to you. Now the bee is very upset that somebody called it lazy. Saying, I'm doing so much work, how can anybody call me lazy? And you called me a lazy bee, so I'm explaining it to you. Otherwise, I don't have any time. Otherwise, I have not a moment to lose. I cannot stand here and talk to you. I don't have the time. The bee is saying, I don't have the time to talk to anybody. I am so busy. Just because somebody called the bee, when it was moving from flower to flower, somebody must have called it lazy bee. So the bee is explaining that I am not lazy. It is my work. Bye. Now children, you have seen this monologue was the monologue of a bee speaking. You will read the lesson and then you will try to answer the questions which are given here. Why is the bee called a busy bee? As usual, you will be writing the answers and then reading it out to me. What work do young bees do when the bees are small? What work do they do? What do the older bees do when they become older, when they move out of the house? What work do they do? What weapon does the bee have? What does the bee use to attack somebody who disturbs the house? When does the bee use its weapon? And when does it attack? When does it use this weapon to attack somebody else? We'll do the rest of the exercises. Now you will be only answering first question A, B, C, D, E. The remaining part of the exercise we will be doing at some later stage. So keep working and thank you very much. There is also one more exercise here. You will be picking out words from the lesson that mean the following: sweet juice of flowers, yellow powdery stuff found in flowers, and the young baby of a bee. What is it called? Thank you. Have a nice day.